Hello everyone, back tuning into our ENSO update for April 2019. So I'm going to bring you up to date with all of the latest developments with El Nino. We've had a weak El Nino over the past few months. We've reached the period in the year when you expect either El Nino warm events or La Nina cold events to start to fade away. And we'll see what's going on in the Equatorial Pacific right now. Are we seeing that fading out of El Nino that you would normally expect to see? And where are the models forecasting things to go with ENSO through the middle and second half of the year? We'll have a look at all the information very shortly. Just say we've had two videos up so far today. So we began, of course, with JMA Friday. As always, your look ahead for the month-ahead look ahead, Japanese and CFS V2 models, and also the week to 10-day video update. That video is on the homepage with JMA Friday right now. Okay, let's get on with April 2019's ENSO update. We're going to start off by looking at the cold and warm episodes by season chart from CPC, NCEP, and NOAA. So this is depicting every El Nino and La Nina event going back to 1950 on a tri-monthly basis. So, for example, in 1953 and 1954, we have an El Nino event depicted quite clearly by these red-coloured numbers here in these boxes through the year of 1953 and lasting into 1954. Then, through the middle of 1954, that reverses and goes into a cold event, goes into a La Nina depicted by the negative blue numbers that we have there. Then that La Nina continues through 1955. Initially quite a weak La Nina, but strengthening later in 1955 into a strong La Nina event. And that La Nina, that cold event, lasts into 1956 as well, before it finally goes back to ENSO neutral for 56-57, and then another El Nino takes us through the second half of 1957 and into 1958 and so on. And you get the idea that this is a cyclical warming and cooling of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So we scroll down through the decades, through the 50s, through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s, through the 1990s, into the 2000s and into the 2010s. And this is where we are right now, 2018, 2019. 2018 starts with a weak La Nina event, a weak cold event, that fades out to ENSO neutral through the middle of 2018. And then we go into a weak El Nino event through the winter of 2018-2019. Our latest coloured number in the box is that one just there, plus 0.8 degrees, so 0.8 of a degree above average. And that's for the tri-monthly period of January, February and March too. And so this gets us to the formal criteria for an El Nino to be designated. That's why the coloured numbers have turned red that we have there. Because we have now reached the required threshold for an El Nino to be designated. To get these events designated, you must meet quite strict criteria. You have to be half a degree or more above average, and the same is true for La Nina. For a cold event to be designated, you have to be half a degree or more below average. So 0.5 is the all-important number, whether that's plus or minus. That's the all-important number at or above 0.5 degrees over 5 tri-monthly periods. So we have now reached the required 5 tri-monthly periods. 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, 4 there, and finally this is the 5th one just here for January, February and March. And so that gets us to an officially designated El Nino. So we can now say there's no beating about the bush, there's no debate about it. The winter of 2018-19 was an El Nino winter, albeit quite a weak one. And of course the rest of these numbers are going to be interesting where we go next. I suspect this one will also reflect an El Nino for February, March and April. We'll probably then fade towards ENSO neutral through the middle part of the year, and then where we go in the second half of the year, kind of like from these summer tri-monthly periods just here, where we go next is the question that we're going to have to be answering. So this is how the sea surface temperature anomalies were looking in the equatorial Pacific when we did last month's ENSO update back in March. This is the area we're interested in. It's the equatorial Pacific Ocean from Peru over to Indonesia. So that, of course, is the equatorial Pacific Ocean, and we are looking there at the sea surface temperature anomalies of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Now, ignore these little blue areas just here. That was just some temporary cooling that happened in the very shallow waters close to the coast of Peru and Mexico as well. So that's probably caused by an area of low pressure or some thunderstorms or something. But it's in these deeper waters that we are most concerned with, out in the middle of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That is the true sort of ENSO region. Much deeper waters, and the change is very much slower and over a much more cyclical type basis. So obviously last month we did continue to see the signature of a weak El Nino event through the equatorial Pacific Ocean. The very latest in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies looking like this. So still just about holding on to this warmer than average sea surface temperature anomaly through the equatorial Pacific Ocean, particularly over towards the eastern side of the equatorial Pacific now, over towards Peru. We do have a warmer than average signature there. However, over the past month, I think we have weakened that signature. It was already quite weak last month, but I think there's less sort of orange this month compared to last month. So I think we are continuing to see a gradual weakening of what was already quite a weak El Nino event. In the central part of the equatorial Pacific, we may actually be back just about to ENSO neutral, albeit on the warm side of ENSO neutral. Over in that eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific, over towards the Peruvian side, we probably still have the signature of El Nino just there, but you can see that we are gradually fading this out. We have gradually faded out the signature over the past month. That's what's happening on the surface. Down at depth, this is how the subsurface temperature anomalies are looking. So with this is from the PDF that's produced every week by CPC, NCEP and NOAA. We linked to this on the links page at Gaz. I'll also leave a link to this in the description at YouTube. It's really, really interesting. It has loads and loads of information, but you do need a file opener like Adobe Reader to be able to access this, because it's a PDF file. So what you need to do with this is imagine that this is kind of like the surface of the equatorial Pacific Ocean just here. So we're just looking at the sea surface temperature anomalies, of course. That is the surface. And we've got Indonesia over there and sort of Mexico a little bit up there. And if you went far enough north, you'd find America up there. So that's like the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, if you like. This is the Indonesian side. This is the western portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. That is kind of like the surface, just underneath the surface. And then these are the depths that we go down to. So 50, 150, 200, 250, to its depth to 300 meters. Very, very deep ocean, of course, in the Pacific Ocean. So you can see that at depth we do have quite a lot of warmer than average sea subsurface temperature anomalies between around sort of the surface and 100 meters. That's where most of the warm waters are. So not going down to a real tremendous depth now, more restricted towards like the upper echelons of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. You'll notice there is a colder than average area of subsurface temperature anomalies appearing here in the western part of the equatorial Pacific Ocean at depth between around sort of 100 and 250 meters. Just appears to be some gathering cold average subsurface temperature anomalies, and maybe the start of a little bit more appearing just there. Now we can actually, this is for the week up to the 18th of April, so that's the very latest in terms of subsurface temperature anomalies. If we go back to, and zoom in a little bit, we can actually go right way back to February. And you can see how that warmer than average area of subsurface temperature anomalies has shrunk really since February. So let's try and zoom in a little bit more. We've got to go over here. And then we're going to go up to here. So that's the subsurface temperature anomaly for the 27th of February. You'll see that there was a small area of cold and average subsurface temperature anomalies just there. That's over towards the Peruvian side, of course. Remember, Peru's there. Indonesia is going to be over here. But look at how much more extensive that area, that warm area of subsurface temperature anomalies was back in February. And it was kind of like at a depth starting virtually at the surface, but going all the way down to around 200 meters. So let's say between 50 and 200 meters is where where there was a huge area of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies. That was back on the 27th of February. If we go back to the latest, to the 18th of April, you can see how that warmer than average area of subsurface temperature anomalies has shrunk. I don't normally do this. I don't normally show you the weekly sort of changes, but it is striking that since February, obviously that warmer than average area of subsurface temperature anomalies has shrunk a lot. And it's mainly restricted to between around 50 and 100 meters. You'll notice that colder waters are beginning to gather underneath that warm area of subsurface temperature anomalies, particularly at around sort of 100 to 250 meters. We are seeing an area of cold and average subsurface temperature anomalies starting to develop, and maybe the hints of something colder than average beginning to appear just there. So could, as the warm than average subsurface temperature anomalies start to dissipate and shrink, could we begin to move towards a cold event starting to develop through the summer and into the autumn? We'll have a look at some modelling in a moment. This is how the SOI is looking. So the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index, is an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the southern Pacific Ocean. It's measuring the air pressures between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti in the southern Pacific Ocean. And when the SOI is in its negative phase, then the atmospheric state will be reflective of an El Nino, being an El Nino state, if you like. When the SY is positive, then the atmospheric state in the Southern Ocean is going to be reflective of La Nina. So negative is El Nino, positive is La Nina. So going back into the earlier part of April, something quite interesting took place. So let's go back to the beginning of March, actually, the end of March, I should say, virtually where we left off on last month's ENSO update. So 27th of March, we've got the air pressures just there. 1011 millibars and 1010 millibars. That leaves us with an SOI of minus 12.83. Reflective of an El Nino state, and that continues through the final days of March and into the first couple of days of April. Then something quite interesting happened through April. We started to get the SY reflecting a La Nina, a cold event, particularly strongly as well. So the 5th of April comes out with an SOI of plus 23.36, very, very positive SOID. The 8th of April comes out at plus 24.37. This is the atmospheric state really reflective of a La Nina event. Now after that, it wasn't sustained very long. After that, we went back negative again. Really substantially negative once more. So the 12th and the 13th of April come out at minus 23.8 and minus 28.12 respectively. And so that was the atmospheric state swing back into an El Nino type setup through the middle part of April. Well, the very latest is that the SOI is looking like this. Still negative, still reflecting El Nino. So the 19th, 20th of April coming out at minus 17 and minus 17 respectively. Going further up, the 21st of April comes out at minus 12, and then the 22nd of April comes out at minus 3. Again, all reflective of an El Nino, albeit these sort of numbers, particularly minus 3, that's just weak El Nino territory. And that goes on to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. We're still more or less on the negative side, minus 9 there, minus 1 there. So the atmospheric state is still reflective of El Nino, as you would expect, really, coming out of an El Nino period. You would expect right now that the atmosphere would still be reflective of El Nino, but it does look as though we're gradually weakening that El Nino atmospheric state of. You can see this on this graph here. So the red line is the 30-day average for the SOI. You'll see that back in the at the end of March, the SOI was down there in terms of its 30-day average, somewhere around -7. But by the time we saw a rapid increase in the SOI, by the time we went through the first week to the second week of April, we're actually up here, virtually back to neutral, only at -1, which is just about an atmospheric state reflective of El Nino, but basically it's back to neutral condition, really. Since then, we have seen a bit of a drop in the SOI, going through to the end of April, but only down to -4, and it does look as though, over time, this El Nino signature is weakening. But where do we go next? Let's have a look at some models finally. So this is how the CFS V2 is forecasting things to develop over the rest of the year. So the black dash line is the ensemble mean. This is looking at the region, the 3.4 region, which is kind of like the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. This is where we're starting off at right now. So still in weak El Nino territory. Of course, these are our anomalies on the side. So that's kind of like 1 degree above average. That's 2 degrees above average. That's 3 degrees above average. Where we are right now, have been through this winter, is kind of like around 1 degree above average. So only a weak El Nino. This would be moderate El Nino, 1.5 degrees above average. 2 degrees above average would be strong. Anything above that would be sort of super Nino territory. Dates are along the bottom of the chart. So where we're starting off at right now for April is around 1 degree above average. You'll see there's a minor tick up here as we go through April into May, but the black dash line is downwards. The trend is down, albeit only slightly. So it looks like CFS V2 is forecasting weak El Nino conditions to continue through to the summer anyway, before probably returning to ENSO neutral by the end of the summer and into the autumn. If you're around around half a degree or less than average, then you're back to ENSO neutral. So if you're kind of like there, that's average, of course, not a deviation either way. That's half a degree above, that's half a degree below. So if you're anywhere in that area, half a degree below, above to half a degree below, if you're anywhere there, then you're at ENSO neutral, albeit either on the warm or on the cold side. It does look as though by the time you get through to the end of the year, that's January 2020, of course, CFS V2 wants to take us back to ENSO neutral. So let's go over a gradual weakening really now, CFS V2 through to the end of the year. This is the ECMWF, and again we can see that we've got our temperature anomalies on the side, dates are on the bottom. That's 1 degree above average where we have been really. That's 2 degrees above average. That would be getting into strong El Nino territory. Anything above that would be into super Nino territory. So this is the ensemble plume. These members up here, they are the warmest members. They're taking us into sort of moderate type El Nino conditions. These ones down here are the coldest members. They're taking us to weak La Nina type condition. And the broad thrust, of course, the main part of the ensemble plume is going to be like there. And so this is where we're starting off at, of course, again around or just a little bit below 1 degree above average. Looks like the trend, after a minor tick up through the latter part of the spring, is generally downwards, really, back to ENSO neutral. Probably staying on the warm side of ENSO neutral, but I think most of these ensemble members are kind of like borderline weak El Nino or back to ENSO neutral on the warm side. That is a lowering, though, of the ensemble plume compared to last month. If I show you last month, that's where we was with last month's ensemble plume. So the broad thrust then was again that sort of ballpark, more closely aligned around 1 degree above average, and there were more sort of warm outlier members and fewer colder outlier members. Comparing that to this month, to April, I think there is a general downwards push, slightly. There are fewer really warm ensemble blue members, and there are more colder ensemble blue members. So it does look as though these models are gradually moving towards certainly an end of El Nino, going back to ENSO neutral, possibly low risk of even going into a cold event, into a La Nina. This is Jamstech, so this is what Jamstech is forecasting for ENSO. Again, same idea, the dates are along the bottom of the chart. Temperature anomalies on the side. That's where we're starting off at right now. 1 degree above average, weak El Nino. The red line is the ensemble mean. You can see that's pretty much downhill all the way from where we are. So by the summer, by July, we're back to ENSO neutral. And actually, as we go through into the early part of next year, that's January 2020, the Jamstech model is taking us just onto the colder side of ENSO neutral, possibly just hinting at the chance of a La Nina by the winter of 2019-20, albeit quite a weak one. The change with last month in terms of Jamstech looks like that. So actually very similar, really, both in terms of the trend and also in terms of where it's starting off at. So again, around a degree above average starting off, and the trend is down to ENSO neutral through the summer. By the time you get through to winter 2019-2020, just hinting at the possibility of either being on the cold side of ENSO neutral, or maybe even hinting at a La Nina, albeit a very weak one. If we have a look back, what these models do tend to do is overestimate the temperature a little bit, though. So let's try going back, shall we, to another year. So what year should we go back to when we had a developing La Nina signature? I'm possibly going to get myself in a bit of trouble with this. So let's go back to April 2010. And you can see in April 2010, that's when we were coming out of a strong El Nino and going into a La Nina event. You can see that it was very, very definitive with that actually back in April 2010. That's where we're starting off at in April 2010. So it had been quite a strong El Nino, certainly moderate, borderline strong through the winter of 2009-10. By April 2010 was kind of like going back to weak El Nino, but look how strongly it was forecasting a La Nina through the second half of 2010 into the early part of 2011. So very, very strongly going for a La Nina event there. Let's try another year where we flip from El Nino to La Nina, and we can have a quick look perhaps at, let's have a quick look at 2007. So again, 2007 was going from a weak El Nino into a La Nina event, quite clearly forecast for that La Nina event by April 2007. That's where it was, actually back to ENSO neutral already by this point in April 2007 from a weak El Nino, and it was clearly going for a La Nina event. Albeit at that point, quite a weak La Nina event, but actually that was strengthened later on in the year. So if we go to, let's say, October 2007, you'll see that that La Nina event gradually got strengthened, and it got strengthened even further through the course of November and into December. You can see how that line gradually moves downwards. So for 2007, Jamstech was forecasting a La Nina at this point, albeit it was a little bit too weak of it. It actually turned out to be a stronger La Nina than anticipated. The same sort of thing happened in 2010-11, really. So again, coming back to, don't want to do that, I want to go to April 2010, there we go. So that's where it was forecasting La Nina to be from the summer into the autumn of 2010, so kind of like at minus 1.5, so sort of a moderate La Nina. But what we did finish up with actually was a bit of a stronger event than that. If we go through to December 2010, you'll see that actually we was down here somewhere around 2 degrees below average, and I think it even goes off the scale a little bit actually at one point. So let's have a look maybe at November 2010. You see it's virtually off the scale there in November 2010. So these models do tend to overdo the temperature a little bit. That takes us back to 2009. So if Gems Tech is forecasting us to drop from there to there by the summer, and then to be there sort of by the winter, we know that these bars tend to overdo the temperature a little bit. They tend to be a little bit too high with the temperature. So if that's what Gems Tech is forecasting, in reality, it could be that we're going to do something a little bit like that, perhaps, and maybe going to a proper sort of landing event, albeit probably quite a weak one. If we're going to go into a moderate or strong landing, I think we would see a stronger signal, not just from Gems Tech, but from all of these bars. So I don't think we're going to go into a moderate or strong landing. But given the fact that all of these models at the moment are forecasting to go downwards, go sort of back to ENSO neutral anyway, possibly with Gems Tech going into a weak La Nina by the winter. If our forecasters do something like that, we know they tend to overdo the temperature a little bit, and so we may finish up actually in reality doing something a bit like that. It'll be interesting to see. As I say, we're still at the spring predictability barrier, so these models are still struggling to see where it's going to go next in terms of ENSO. But I think if you put what's happening at depth in terms of those subsurface temperature anomalies with what the models are beginning to pick up on, which is a decline, quite a quick decline, back to ENSO neutral by the summer, and then maybe going on the cold side of ENSO neutral by the autumn or winter. I think if you put that together with what's happening in terms of the subsurface temperature anomalies cooling rapidly, we're seeing a rapid shrinkage of that warmer than average area of subsurface temperature anomalies underneath the surface of the actual Pacific Ocean. Putting it together, I don't think it's out of the question. We might start to move towards a La Nina through the summer and into the autumn. If we do get a La Nina, you've heard it here first, because generally all of the speculation has been about El Nino. But I just wonder whether this is starting to move in the other direction. We'll know more in the next month or two. Next month, May, still in the spring, could be affected by the spring predictability barrier. Try saying that when you've had a few. But as we get through to the... And I haven't, by the way. I'm doing this stone cold sober. But by the time we get through to the summer, it could be that we're beginning to see signs of La Nina, albeit a weak one. We shall see. Right, so that's it for your updates for today. We'll have a look at ENSO again next month. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more to go on then. Tomorrow we're going to have a weekend forecast, of course, as always. We're going to have your very busy day actually tomorrow. Weekend forecast will be coming up as always on a Saturday. Week to 10-day video update as well. There'll be a bank holiday, May Day bank holiday weekend update in the evening, and we'll begin though by having a look at the second seasonal model roundup for the summer of 2019. It's going to get all the long range models together, around 13 of them, see what we're all showing for the summer, and that will be the first video up tomorrow, probably at 10 AM. Alright, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.